My name is William Alsop. I'm an architect and I always wanted to be an architect, as long as I can remember. My interest in architecture, really, I don't really know where that came from. There's no one in my family that has done architecture or anything remotely like that. Maybe I fell in love with the word at some point, and before I knew what it meant. I mean, who knows? All I do know is that I was brought up in a house very close to the first modern movement house we built in Britain. This is in Northampton, a house called New Ways, designed by an architect called Peter Behrens. I always remember my mother taking us for a walk, who would say, "That's a really ugly house." And the more she said it, the more I seemed to think, well, actually it's quite interesting, because it didn't look like any other house in Northampton. I find that quite a lot of people are curious about the way that I work, which may or may not work in my favour. I don't know, but anyway, I do what I do, and I don't know any other way of doing it. That I tend to use paintings often very large, and it's not something I've always done, it's just evolved. Soane has influenced me over a period of time in different ways. I was interested in some ways because he was quite a difficult man. He didn't take things lying down, and he did things which were unusual at the time in which he was working. The experience of being in his buildings is quite different to many others, because again it's about the unexpected. That's what I really appreciate about him. But to be more specific, and if you go to the actual museum, I like the way he sort of expanded the space, that it's like going to the TARDIS really, it's much bigger.
Well, I'm sitting here in the Soane Museum, which of course was his house, and it's full of intrigue, strange spaces, strange connections and strange views. And it's in part there to house his extraordinary collection, but it's a wonderful place. When I was a student at the Architectural Association, I found it a very good place, not so much to sketch what's in the museum as to absorb the ambience and to do my own sketches, trying to work out what I wanted to do. So therefore, in that way, it was a point of some inspiration. I'm not sure that you would recognise it coming through in the actual work I did, but I can assure you it was a delight to sit here with your own thoughts in a place that obviously inspired somebody else. The Blizzard building, I think there is a relationship between what I've tried to achieve there in terms of the spaces. I mean, it's really one big space, but divided up by objects hanging there, and it reveals different views and unexpected connections. One could say that there is a sort of Soanean aspect to that particular building. And I think that there is a mysterious quality to a lot of Soane's work. It's not a functional thing, because if it was all done from a functional point of view, you wouldn't do what he has done here. But it's a peculiar set of spaces. There's some spaces which I find, because I'm quite big, you have to sort of turn sideways to get through. There's always an invitation to dwell and sit in rather strange places, and I like that. Places where you feel that you would like to sit, even if you don't. You know, there's lots of architects that will try and teach methodology. I don't think that matters. It's what you do with it, and it helps you become an individual, and it's the individuality of Soane which I think is the interesting point. If he'd been like all the rest, there wouldn't be this museum, would there?